Hello beautiful people, my name is Shalom. I am a woman who wears many hats, and today I will be chatting to you in my capacity as a hypnobirthing childbirth educator and a mom of two. So as you can see by today's title, we are going to be chatting all about contractions. How do they feel? What do they feel like? What you need to expect, how to prepare for them, and all that jazz. So if you want to hear all about that, all about my experience, as well as how to make sure you have a different experience to what is normally experienced, to what people normally have, then let's dive right in. So before I just go into talking about what my experience was like, let's just chat about what exactly contractions are for a second. So when it comes to our uterus and our growing bellies and our growing babies in our bellies, what happens once it's time for baby to come out of your belly, your uterus will start having contractions. So generally you'll feel these in your belly area, usually at the bottom of your belly. You'll feel these in your back. You'll feel these in your bum. You'll feel these along your vagina, generally just that whole area at the bottom. And the reason why you feel contractions is because baby needs to be pushed out. So what the contractions do is they push baby through the birth canal and out the vagina. That is the purpose of a contraction. So I had two very different experiences with my two daughters. My first birth experience, I can only describe contractions as agonizing. My contractions were agonizing, they were painful, they were intense, beyond intense. They were, at like period pain times 1,000. And this is for someone who doesn't really get period pain much. So for me, I was like, what are we doing here? What is happening? I don't know what is going on. And it was really bad. I remember I was so shocked that how could no one tell me how painful contractions really are? Like, people tell you about birth and that is painful. And you're like, okay, cool, Then I used to think that I have a really high pain threshold. But with my second birth, I had a completely different experience. And if I had had my second birth as my first, I would have been on some, I don't know what people are talking about. That was not painful. That was just intense. I was just feeling some pressure. I have a high pain threshold. That's genuinely what I would have thought if my second birth is what I had as my first. But because I got to experience my first birth and I got to experience my second birth, I know that the way in which you prepare for your labor is what will determine how painful your contractions are going to be, if at all. So let's just dive in and chat about how to make sure that your contractions or your labor isn't painful. All right, so before I get into it, I just want to remind you guys that I am a hypnobirthing childbirth educator. That means I have been certified to teach hypnobirthing and as well as educate moms on the anatomy of your body, but I am not a medical practitioner. If you want to delve more into your specific circumstance, you need to speak to your healthcare practitioner, all right, whether that's your nurse at the clinic, whether that's your midwife, whether that's your gynae. I highly recommend you speak to them and they will be able to give you the best advice for your specific situation. Okay, let's dive right in. So why exactly is it that sometimes we have painful contractions and other times we don't? So fear is the biggest factor over here. We have something that's called the fear, tension, pain syndrome. It's actually a vicious cycle. And what happens is if you are feeling fearful, then you will have tension. If you are tense, if your muscles are tense, that will lead to pain. And if you are in pain, you become even more fearful. And it's literally this vicious cycle. And that is actually exactly what I experienced with my first birth, because I was going through this for the first time. I was, scared. Once I started feeling those contractions, I was like, oh, I didn't know this is what to expect. I wasn't sure what to expect. I was worried about so many things. There were so many things going through my mind at the time. And really, that fear caused me to become so tense. So what happened when I was tensing is I was knaping down there. If you are South African, you will understand what this means when you knape. But basically, if you're not and you don't understand, it basically means, when you need the bathroom and there's no bathroom inside and you just kind of hold to make sure that nothing comes out. That is basically what I was doing to my body. I was tightening everything, and because I was tightening everything and my body was trying to release the baby and push baby down, those two things worked against each other, and then I experienced pain. All right, so that pain was something else, and because I was in so much pain, I was even more fearful, which led me to have more tension, which led to even more pain. So that by the time I was actually giving birth to my daughter, now I want you to understand something. With my first daughter, I was like, I want a non-medical, birth. I want it to be completely medicine free. I want no interventions, and I said this to my midwife, and she obliged. But by the time I was at like 8 centimeters dilated, I was like, oh, I want an epidural. And my midwife was like, oh, it's kind of late for that. And I was in so much pain that I forgot about what I actually wanted. And I'm so grateful that I had the kind of midwife who was like, okay, I will consider what you are saying right now, but remember what you told me beforehand, and let's try to stick as much as possible to your plan so that we make sure that you get what you actually want and not what you suddenly want because you're in pain. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'll speak about the different pain management techniques in another video. But before you even get to the pain part, we need to understand how to get rid of the fear. So how exactly does fear play a role in your birth? Now, there's something we call the autonomic nervous system, and that is basically what regulates the processes in your body, the autonomic processes in your body, which is your nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system is basically what regulates whether you are in the parasympathetic sphere or the sympathetic sphere. So in hypnobirthing terms, we call this the healing room and the emergency room. Now what happens with the healing room is you are, in a state of bliss, everything is you are in the state 95 to 98% of the time, right? And you are, feeling good, the blood is flowing everywhere it needs to be flowing, everything is happening the way it's supposed to be happening, you are good, baby is good, everything's just flowing in a really beautiful way. Whereas with the sympathetic sphere, the emergency room, that's when you are in your fight, flight, or freeze state. And that's basically when something is happening, there's either real or perceived danger, and your body is just like, okay, we need to do something about this. Adrenaline pumps into your body, and that's when you start having things like your oxygen in your blood goes to all your arms and your legs, your limbs basically, and now you're getting ready to either run away or to fight. And I'm going to use the very famous analogy of a lion. Now, if you are in the wild and you see a lion, the first thing your body's going to do is it's going to tense up, it's going to put that oxygen into the blood that goes to your legs and your hands, because you either need to run as fast as you can out of there, or you need to fight off this lion and fight for your life. And basically what happens during birth or during labor is that once you get into that sympathetic sphere or that emergency room, your body does the same thing. Your oxygen in your blood goes to your arms and your legs. And where exactly is the oxygen supposed to go? It's supposed to go to your uterus. So if you don't have any oxygen in your uterus, that's when you will have pain, right? So one of the other things you can think about is, for example, your heart. If your heart is pumping in a healthy way, it's contracting and releasing, you don't feel any pain. With your stomach, if your stomach is, digesting food, you don't feel any pain, and that's when it contracts and releases. With your intestines will contract and release. This is called peristalsis. There's small, contractions along your intestines, and this is what helps to digest your food. And in a normal healthy state, that is not supposed to be painful. So why is it that we feel this pain when it comes to our uterus? And that's exactly what I mean, that if there is no blood going through to your uterus, but your uterus is still trying to push your baby out of your body, but it doesn't have enough blood to do what it needs to do, at the end of the day, it's kind of like strangling your uterus. If you think about it this way, if you put an elastic band around your wrist, and I'm pretty sure we've all tried this at some point, if it wasn't around our wrist, it was around our finger, and what happens is that blood no longer flows the way it's supposed to flow. The same thing, and it's basically like you're suffocating your finger or your wrist or your hand from having the blood you need, and that eventually becomes painful. And the same thing happens with your uterus. It basically gets suffocated, and that causes pain. And because it's still trying to kind of push baby out of the birth canal, that pain causes even more tension, which causes even more pain, and it's just really bad. So what we need to try and do is completely get rid of that fear. Okay, so there are actually a few things you can do to get rid of the fear when it comes to your labor. Firstly, you need to make sure that your surroundings are, calm and relaxing. You need to make sure that you are in a state where, in a place where you are used to the environment, which is one of the reasons why you'll find that with home births, women who have home births have a far less likely chance of having very painful contractions because they are in an environment that they are used to. But obviously not everyone can have a home birth, and sometimes you do need to go into hospital. And one of the things you can do to make sure that your surroundings are more relaxing for yourself is you can bring your music, play music which relaxes you. You can actually bring some pillows or candles or different things that you can use to make sure that your body knows that, okay, this is a safe space and I am safe here. Make sure that you maybe bring a few goodies for the nurses so they're nice to you. Yes, it's bribing, yes, it does work, but maybe bring them some chocolates just to say, thank you so much for being here and being helpful for my labor process. And maybe that will help you feel a bit calmer. It will establish rapport with them, and it will help you kind of feel, okay, cool, they like me, I like them. Just because you bring them chocolate doesn't mean they'll actually be nice to you. But more often than not, the nurses are going to be nice, and they're going to be trying their best to make sure that both you and baby are safe, right? The other thing you can do to make sure that your surroundings are very relaxing is you can dim the lights. If it's possible, dim the lights in your hospital room. You can also maybe there are those candles where it is a battery operated candle, because a normal candle might be a fire hazard. So if you want, you can buy a bunch of battery operated candles, like those tea candles, tea lights, and you can put them all over your room and just dim the lights so that it's got a bit of a romantic vibe. You need to remember that when it comes to relaxing your body, you want to make sure there's as much oxytocin as possible. So kind of set that scene of the same way baby was made. That's kind of, or for most of us, the same way baby was made. That's the scene you want to set for when baby makes their appearance into the world. And that will really help your body relax as much as possible, and will really help get rid of that fear that you might be feeling when it comes to birth. The other thing you can do to make sure that you are not in a fearful state is to get into this deep relaxation state. So what happens with hypnobirthing is we teach you self-hypnosis, where you actually have scripts that you can either read to yourself, have your partner or your birthing companion read to you. And the thing is, because you practice these over time, these scripts help you to really get into the deeply relaxed state. We live in the 21st century where we don't know how to relax anymore. We are constantly in a state of stress, and because of that, we don't know how to just let go. And one of the things we teach you in hypnobirthing is how to let go, and we teach you different things you can do to make sure your mind lets go, to stop being anxious and just be in that happy healing room. Alright, so one of the things you can do is to get into a deep state of relaxation, and that will also help to get rid of the fear. And the other thing you can do is also affirmations. What you will find often, and I've got a link down below if you would like to print out if you would like to get free printable affirmation cards from my website, you can click on the link in the description box. But basically what affirmations do is they give you that strength that you need to know, you know what, I can do this. My body was made to do this. These surges are just coming and going, and every surge brings me closer to my baby. And there are a lot of beautiful affirmations you can use for the actual birthing process. As long as you make sure that you're staying in that healing room and not allowing fear in, not allowing cortisol, which is the stress hormone, in, you should be fine. And yeah, so these are the strategies that I would recommend. But in hypnobirthing, we teach you a few more strategies that you can use to make sure that, you know what, you keep the fear at bay, and you make sure that you advocate for yourself during the birth, and you just kind of are in this healing room the whole time. It can be a really beautiful experience, and I highly recommend that you look at different ways in which you can relax. And while you are pregnant, as you are pregnant, find ways to relax. Find moments where you just relax and you connect with your baby. Find moments where breathing exercises, for example, breathing exercises will also help you relax and immediately get into that state of being in the healing room rather than being in the emergency room. And those are all things you will learn in hypnobirthing. So if you would like to do a hypnobirthing course with me, please click in the description box below. I'm very, very happy to help. And yeah, your labor and your birth do not have to be painful. Contractions do not have to be painful, right? I hope this video helped. If you think it will help someone else, please do share it with them. And yeah, have a wonderful day, guys.